Because, for instance, even
Well,
if you're talking physically, we can't give birth and women can't. So that's
well,
something
there can't really be though. There can't
what?
really be equality because, again, if the enforcement of any of these things that you want to do, like you could say, I'm going to shut your business down. They say, well, no, fuck you. I'm not going to shut my business down. And you're going to send enforcers in, and those enforcers are going to arrest them, shut the business down, this type of thing, under threat of violence. Those are always going to be men. So again, it can never truly be equal.
Andrew Wilson calmly destroys this BLM guy's argument about women's rights in this clip from Playing with Fire. And I like this clip because even as this guy tries to make his points, in the end, Andrew Wilson just lays down the hard truth like he normally does, as Andrew Wilson is a master debater, not because he uses tricks, but because he looks at the bigger truths. Let's check it out.
When it comes down to all these different things, right? I would say when we're talking about equal, I would say in the form of maybe not physical, but in terms of other aspects to complement what men do. Absolutely, we can have a society, right? And that's why there's certain things, right? Even the government, right, that are influenced by women, they also cast their votes to put things in. Like I don't know if it's overwhelmingly women that are responsible for affirmative action, but one can say affirmative action is kind of a way to try to equalize the playing field in certain fields, right? Where they demand certain jobs be, staffed with what do you call board members, be a certain amount of women or things like that, right? That's their way to try to level the playing field in those aspects. Now, I think on one hand, you might have success in the short term, but on the other hand, it might pose some troubles in the long term because you're not looking at other qualifying measures, right? Whether if they're actually qualified to do their job versus what the gender they are, right? And you can also make the same argument with race and these other things, right? But it doesn't mean that, like, even women who are put in those certain positions, they don't have the competency to be able to work those positions, because they do. A lot of the work is, we're basically largely in a service economy right now. So you don't really need a lot of that physical labor or that kind of, even though those jobs exist in overwhelming numbers and men aren't filling those jobs, you still in the modern society don't need that physical movement or physical force. So yeah, when we talk about a society, we're trying to get an equal amount of participation in the economy and in workforces, especially with women. Yeah, you can understand why those laws are put in place. But if we're talking about, I think your argument, it goes back to the physical thing. I think in that aspect, when we're talking about getting women in terms of like using things other than just physical attributes, I think there can be some equality in there. Because, for instance, even when we're talking physically, we can't give birth and women can't. So that's
well, there can't really be though. There can't really be equality because, again, if the enforcement of any of these things that you want to do, like let's say, and I'm not saying you specifically want to do them, I'm just saying you is like a euphemism, right? But if you say like affirmative action, let's say you want to implement affirmative action, you're going to need enforcement to do that, because if you have people who aren't complying with affirmative action, you could say, I'm going to shut your business down. They say, well, no, fuck you. I'm not going to shut my business down. And you're going to send enforcers in, and those enforcers are going to arrest them, shut the business down, this type of thing, under threat of violence. Those are always going to be men. So again, it can never truly be equal. Ever.
Yeah, but I'm saying, if we move the physical stuff aside, because now you're bringing it back to physical.
You can't.
Yeah, if you got someone who's got to physically enforce the law, and not enforce the law, but enforce whatever. Yeah, okay. Largely, guys are going to be more effective at it than women. You got no arguments there. If we move the enforcement side set aside, right, and we're just talking about C-suite jobs, or even jobs that are like, you got a desk and a chair, and you got to type away or do some call center type shit. It's stuff that men and women can equally do, right? So it's one of those things where in certain aspects, when you remove the physical, there's certain equalities that's there, and there's certain laws to protect those rights too as well. Now, I would say that with the rise of feminism, it's gotten a lot more worse than what it is, right? But overwhelmingly, the women now and today have just the same rights, aside from the physical, as men do, right? They the right to liberty, life, pursuit of happiness, all that thing.
As long as men let them have it, yes.
Yeah, this guy Duke doesn't seem to understand. You can't pick and choose which parts of reality you want to live around. Like, it doesn't work. You got to take the whole thing as a whole package. And look, at the end of the day, the reason that women do have all the same rights as men do is because men chose it. Men chose it. Men chose to change the laws. Men enforce it. That is the reality of the world. And you can't separate that. You can't. Look, honestly, if all of a sudden, Andrew Wilson is pointing out, because it's always going to come down to that enforcement wing. At the end of the day, if you can't enforce anything, who cares? It doesn't matter. It inherently means it is absolutely irrelevant. So if all of a sudden guys just said, you know what, we're just not going to do this anymore, it would basically be over. Like that. It would be over in an instant. So Andrew Wilson, look, people may not like this truth, but that is the real hardcore truth that Andrew Wilson is trying to say, is like, no matter what, you cannot separate that. You can't pick and choose. You can't cherry pick. You got to take life and everything all as one package. You don't get to just like, ooh, I don't like that. No, this is that left weakest mentality. No, you can't do that. That doesn't work in the real world. So at the end of the day, men choose this, and men choose to go along with this. And yeah, men and women will never be fully equal in that retrospect, because men will always be the enforcement arm of the law. It will never, ever change. But you can let me know in the comments what you think. Leave a like. Let's get back in.
Wait, in 5%, I want to wrap up the open portion of the debate and move on to closing thoughts, and then super chats, and then open panels. So just a 5-minute heads up to making the arguments you want to make.
Well, can we just go to closing statements then?
If Duke is okay with it, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
Well,
right,
you open first, Duke. I'll
Yeah, you
close
can
first,
close
so you
first.
have the last word. I think that's fair, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
So largely, I'm not sure when we started fleshing this out that there was that much of a disagreement. I think Duke actually agrees with me. He just kind of, I think, doesn't want to concede that he agrees with me, but I think he does. That kind of largely rights enforcement comes from men, and it always will, and it does everywhere on planet Earth, even right this second. I don't think he disagrees with any of that. And further, that women's rights definitely are going to have to be enforced under threat of violence. And so it's the enforcement arm that really gives them their rights. So, I mean, you really can't run away from the fact that men give women their rights. They don't get it from anything other than, now he made some good arguments that I've heard before that I can just kind of concede to right away, because they don't actually hurt my point, which is that, yes, women can use coercion as a form of cooperation. Women can use coercive tactics in order to have men enforce their rights against other men. I see them do that all the time. They seem to be fairly effective at it. And I think for the most part, men tend to want to protect women. So we kind of go out of our way to kind of yield to that coercive nature. We kind of go out of our way to yield to that coercive nature. And we're very indulgent because we're very benevolent. Men are benevolent at the end of the day, really. More benevolent, I think, even than women are. So I can kind of concede those points, but it's kind of irrelevant because on the whole, whether or not men can grant these things to women, or women can use coercive measures to have men grant rights on their behalf, men are still the ones who are doing the granting of the rights. And there's just really no way around that.
Yeah, Andrew Wilson makes the point that men are really the benevolent ones. And I would absolutely agree with that, because we're the ones who, we're supposed to be the provider. We're supposed to be the ones who lay down our lives. But at the same time, we are the ones who granted equal rights to women. We're the ones who enforce those same rights to protect women. This is largely and completely in the capacity of men. Like that's just the hardcore truth, no matter which way you think about it. And that's no shot against women at all, but that's just the truth. Like, men are the ones really making society work. And yet there's been largely a huge attack on masculinity and men in recent years. But it's completely diametrical to the health of a society and a civilization as a whole. So Andrew Wilson, making this point that, men, no matter what, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to men granting these rights, because at a whim, hey, it could all be gone. It could all be gone. So I don't know how you're going to get around this. So, I mean, it just goes to show how important men really are in society. I mean, all these attacks, all this negative energy, toxic masculinity for years, but really it's just anti-man. It's just anti-man, because at the end of the day, we are the ones who are granting rights, and we are the ones who are the protectors of society. But you can let me know what you think about that in the comments, and what you thought about what Andrew Wilson had to say to this guy in this clip from Playing with Fire. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments what you thought. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.